joining us on the phones right now. Director of Defense Studies at the Center for the National Interest, Harry Kazianis, joining us once again here on the Chad Hasty Show. Welcome back to the show, Harry. How are you?
Good morning, my friend. How are you?
Doing great. I appreciate you joining us today. Last night, obviously, President Trump's State of the Union address did have a section that was focused on North Korea, and I thought an iconic moment there in the Capitol when a defector from North Korea raised those crutches into the air. What did you think, one, about that moment, and two, about what the president said about North Korea?
Honestly, I was blown away. I don't get emotional about these things too much, but me and my wife were both sitting on the couch here in D.C. and, watching that moment. We both had tears in our eyes. It was very, very powerful. It was a mix of, in terms of Trump's delivery, it was very Reagan-esque. I was very, very impressed. But in terms of that defector who got up, who's missing an arm, who's missing a leg, who had his leg and arm amputated without anesthesia in North Korea, and he's raising his crutches in the air, sort of reminded me of something out of a Rocky movie mixed in with geopolitics. So it was, yeah. I thought it was an amazing moment, and I think really shows that the Trump administration is going to take a little bit different tack now with North Korea. They're going to emphasize the human rights component to this problem, which I think is a huge thing that the Trump administration can do. That North Korea has almost 200,000 people in the only political gulags that are in existence on this planet today. So I think that's a very powerful thing to do.
It's something that, to me, it's surprising, but not a lot of people know the human rights side of North Korea. They don't know those stories. Is this something that you think, if the Trump administration focuses on this, that they can rally people around putting more pressure on North Korea?
Yes. I think this is one of the things that even myself that we get all obsessed and crazed over the missiles and the nuclear weapons and all the goodies, if you will, that drives the media. But the human rights tragedy in North Korea is on par with Nazi Germany, and I don't say that lightly. But like I said, there's perhaps as many as 200,000 people in gulags. The way those people that are treated in those gulags, I can't say on air because that's how terrible it is. But if you enter one of these prison camps, the chances are you're going to die, and you're going to die in some of the most brutal ways. Women are routinely raped in these camps. When they become pregnant, they are forced to have abortions that, again, I'm not going to go on air and talk about, but you can look this stuff up. Yeah. And it really shows the evil of this regime and how there was no bigger threat on this planet than North Korea. It really is horrific.
The president did say that he's not going to repeat the mistakes of his predecessors. What does that mean, you think?
Well, I think this administration, I was thinking that they would actually start talking about, maybe previewing military options, talking about the whole bloody nose strategy and all that's been out in the press. But the president seems to shift it away from that a little bit. I think the way this is going to play out is we're going to have this sort of fake Olympic detente when, the North and the South are going to hold hands and we're all going to watch it on TV and think, oh, things are going to get better. It's not. Come April, actually, the North Koreans are going to likely start testing missiles and nuclear weapons all over again, and we're going to be back to the brink. But what I think the administration is going to do is they are going to ratchet up the pressure dramatically. I think the administration is going to go to any country that has diplomatic relations with North Korea, and they're going to say, look, that needs to stop. I think they're going to cut trade as much as they possibly can, and they're basically going to carve North Korea off the map of this planet. I don't think that's a perfect strategy. It's not going to take away their nuclear weapons, but if we can sort of stop them from getting any further than where they are, I think that's going to make a difference, and I think eventually they will come to the table. I really do.
You did write a piece last night for Fox News. North Korea's days are numbered. Trump's State of the Union just made that clear. Do you think China understood that last night? Do you think that maybe the North Koreans understood that last night?
I think they do. I think the symbolism was very powerful, and in a world that's addicted to social media and the 24-hour news cycle, I think those images of that North Korean defector are going to be really an evil empire moment for China as well as North Korea. And I think they realize that, look, time is not on North Korea's side. History tells us that regimes like this never last. And you can try to wall that country off as much as you can, but millions of people in North Korea have cell phones, and they're learning how to hack those cell phones to call relatives in South Korea, to pull up cursory internet information, and a lot of them have, bootleg DVD players, and they're able to watch, media coming out of South Korea and China. They know that there's a better world out there. So I think someday what we're going to see, it's going to be a slow process, but there'll be a spark where the North Koreans are going to start demanding just the ability to have food, the ability to talk to their neighbors and not worried that they're going to be ratted out to the North Korean Gestapo. I think there's going to be a change here. Time is on our side, and we need to remember that.
North Korea did respond in a way. Apparently, they're going to have a nice little parade of weapons.
Yeah, this parade is going to be quite the spectacle. The day before the Olympic opening ceremonies, keep in mind. The reports on CNN today that there's going to be countless types of missiles, that there's going to be lots of long-range ICBMs that they're going to roll down the boulevard in Pyongyang. And it's really a mystery to me if, the North Koreans are doing this, why they're even allowed to even come to the Olympics.
Yes.
It is a complete abomination and against everything we stand for. But you know what? We know the reason why. It's because the South Koreans had no choice, because I think they realized, and smartly, that the North Koreans would have done something to damage those games. So
wasn't the move that South Korea made to try and include athletes from North Korea, wasn't that made to stop something like this parade?
I think, in some respects, I think what they were afraid of, him talking to sources in South Korea as well as in China, what they were really worried about was the North Koreans would light off an ICBM during the opening ceremonies or right around that time, and then people would just start canceling their hotel, plans and their visits to the Olympics and all that. And when you think about the South Koreans invested $10 billion into these games, and the countless other billions of dollars in TV contracts and anything else, there's a lot of money riding on this. Yeah. So it basically happened. The North Koreans were bribed with participation. But you know what? When the Olympics were over and the Paralympics are over in March, we go back to the brink again.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Harry, overall, in any other parts from last night's speech that you thought stood out from the president as far as, relations with other countries or, where we are right now as far as defense goes?
Well, I appreciate what the president said about trying to rebuild our military. I mean, for far too long, we've had these strange budgetary problems where we can't agree on a budget, or we go through these continuing resolutions, and our military doesn't get the stable funding that it needs. Talking to colleagues and friends at the Pentagon, they'd actually be okay with a smaller military budget. But if you don't know the dollars that are coming in, you can't plan, you can't train, you can't get the spare parts that you need to make our aircraft carriers or our F-22s work properly. So that's the biggest problem in all this. It isn't really, if you want to spend $600 or $650 billion, you need to know what you got to spend.
Right.
So I appreciate the president working on that. I really liked his comments on Iran, making that a big focus of administration. He's on the right path. He just needs to keep pushing forward.
Harry Kazianis, appreciate you joining us today, and I'm sure we'll visit again soon.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you. Appreciate it. That's Harry Kazianis. Always a pleasure to visit with him, Director of Defense Studies at the Center for the National Interest. Chad Hasty Show, KFYO.